So once again, I don't want to be here on the stage alone. So for this, I'm asking also our panelists to join me here on the stage. So first, we're going to start with with Mika Jantunen, all the way from Finland, so our neighborhood country here. He is the regional director at the Sub-Saharan Africa and Finnish Water Forum. So secondly, Phyian Karinge, I hope I pronounced your name correctly as well, so you can correct me later. Senior product manager at a company called Agribora. And then also Georg Rute, who is the CEO of one of the Estonian companies called Gridraven. And then last but not least, then also Morwesi Ramonyai Thonga, who is the CEO at 4D Grid, and also she is the World Bank Senior Advisor to the President Climate Commission as well. So you can come and have a seat as well here. Maybe to kind of kick off here, I would say that Africa is actually playing a very, very increasingly central role when it comes to powering smarter decisions, and of course, especially from precision agriculture to very much predictive grid management, not to even talk about the water industry as well, and then also circular economical systems as well. So I will make sure that by the end of the panel discussion here, we will actually understand what really works in practice and also what kind of barriers we still do have, and of course also how public-private partnerships can accelerate Africa's climate-smart transformation as well. So to kick off with the first question, like I said, I like to talk about the trends, and we would really understand what's happening in the continent. And I would actually approach every single person here on the stage, our panelist, with an opening question. We hear a lot about like the climate tech and the green economy in Africa, but what trends, or I would say also kind of different shifts, are you seeing when it comes to how data and digital tools are influencing the green growth as well? So I would very much love to start here on my right hand as well. Morwesi.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, good morning, and it's a real pleasure to be here. Perhaps I can start by saying, in our business, how we see the future of power in general and energy in Africa is that it's certainly going to be decarbonized, decentralized, democratized, and most importantly, digital. And the mere fact that it has to be all those things automatically quite makes it clear that you're going to need the power of technology, information, artificial intelligence, and that's really the big trend, and it's going to be the cornerstone of how we move ourselves forward into the next generation of how power works and how energy is provided.
All the way to you, Georg.
Thank you, Anett. It's an honor to be here. The question of what's going on in the whole continent is a bewildering one. I looked this up just now, that there's over 2,000 languages spoken in the continent of Africa, and there's only about 200 in Europe. So that says a bit about the differences in the regions. However, in the area of electrical transmission, in which I work in, the electrical grid, the physics is the same everywhere, and there are about a few types of different electrical conductors that you can have, and those are all the same in Africa and Europe and the rest of the world. So at least in terms of the electrical grid infrastructure, the basic problems are the same as here. Most of the transmission lines were built decades ago. They were built to connect thermal power plants with centers of demand. Now we are shifting the locations where we produce electricity, and we also are trying to grow electrical consumption really rapidly to connect everybody. Maybe not the right path in Africa is to connect everybody to the transmission grid. You will have decentralized power, which makes much more sense given the scale of the continent. But in the parts that are connected, you need much more transmission and to grow the industry. So there is the challenge that Gridraven also helps to address, and data, you mentioned, is the core of it. We need to know what's going on in the transmission grid so that we can maximize it.
Awesome. All the way to you, Phyian.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone.
Some of them are still Estonian, so we need to take some time for this.
Okay, I'll speak from the agriculture perspective. as you know, especially in Africa, agriculture is the least digitized industry. But what we're seeing, an interesting trend we're seeing, is that financial institutions are beginning to trust digital records that are outside of their systems. So that means that now farmers, agribusinesses can be investable and they can be visible. So it's a pretty good trend that we're seeing. We can also see a lot of youth-led innovations, especially in the green economy. So I think that's a very forward trend that is cool.
All right. Mika, to you. Any trends that you are seeing, especially in your industry as well?
Thanks, Anett. And first of all, I would like to congratulate organizers of this great event. It's a really pleasure to come all the way from Finland, but all the way from South Africa to attend Tallinn. Actually, a long time I've been since I've been here. So a little bit my background, right? I'm a Finn coming from neighboring country of Estonia, and I need to also emphasize friendly neighboring country of Estonia, Finland. But I've been living in African continent now for 15 years. Two of my children are born in that continent, and so from that perspective, I consider myself a little bit African, right? And I'm extremely happy to see my African sisters and brothers so much in this event. So really good to be here. I've been working in various industries. Started ICT, digital. Been working in waste management, circular economy, it's also called. But now, last 2 years, as a regional director for Finnish Water Forum, we represent Finnish expertise in water. And if I can, I would like to take one step back and say that Africa, 54 countries, I think 3,000 tribes, thousands of languages. For companies coming, also for me when I came to the continent for the first time, it was difficult to understand that continent because of that. Estonia, Finland, very homogeneous countries. We all look the same. We speak the same languages. My current home country, South Africa, 11 different languages, a lot of different cultures. And I actually can't say what are the trends in Africa. Last 2 years I've been working a lot in South Africa and Kingdom of Lesotho. Actually, I just came last Friday from Kingdom of Lesotho, where we are supporting government of Lesotho's vision to become the first digital hydro nation in the whole of the world. One trend I would like to pick up is that there's a new leadership in Africa, in many countries, which I welcome heavily, because that vision governments create is a foundation, a starting point for this theme we are discussing today.
And as we discussed also in our previous panel as well, like the leadership is the key element there when we would like to see this kind of changes. And then we see this even happening, you know, in the US at the moment, how massively the leadership is really influencing the entire way we see at the green change and transformation. So I would like to kindly remind you, everybody, once again, that you can just stand up, raise your hand if you have any questions. Don't kind of leave your question until the very end. We might run out of time. So please do just kind of in the middle of the conversation, you can stand up and raise your hand as well. But I will continue with one of the questions, Morwesi, to you. You are somebody who is advising at the very highest levels of climate policy. And what's missing when we talk about connecting data innovation to national climate strategies?
I think like most sectors, it's coordination. more than anything. There is a lot of incredible work that is happening, particularly in climate action. There's a lot of incredible effort that's been made in South Africa, specifically in mitigation. What is lagging behind is adaptation action, and adaptation finance more specifically. But, you know, with a lot of effort that is happening, it's quite uncoordinated, decentralized and whatnot. And I think what we're looking to do from a policy level is to try and bring that all together. We certainly have got a National Climate Change Act that's come through. So that's a very, very progressive move and one that's definitely bringing in that leadership that is needed and that executive mandate that's needed. So I think we're seeing progress. There is, I think, a lot to look forward to. But I would say the biggest challenge is possibly around coordination, because everybody is doing something, but we don't always see what we're doing and how we can maximize and leverage and really scale up some of the even great initiatives that are happening.
Awesome.
Thanks.
George, now to talk about your company as well. So I would put it this in a way that how is Gridraven, did I say that correctly? Helping really energy companies, I would say, make smarter, cleaner decisions in a way. And also if you could share some of the projects that you have in Africa where your solution really is currently in use already, or also under any kind of a pilot that you would like to talk about. So just kind of some very concrete examples that what you are currently doing in Africa and what has been your experience, and maybe also if I could add a bit there as well. So what regulatory or infrastructure conditions really helped or kind of, you know, stop you a bit in the process of implementation as well?
Thanks. So I mentioned already the transmission grid, and that's what we're working on. And it happens that there is a lot of unused capacity in the existing grid. When the power transmission was built, it was built to connect a central plant to a city, and you made sure that under the worst possible conditions you have enough transmission capacity. And the worst conditions for a transmission line is a hot summer day with no wind, because it overheats. The limit there is that it gets too hot, and then you can't push more power through it. And 99%, like 97% of the time, there's more capacity. When it's not so hot, there's a bit of wind. And so what we do is we have machine learning-based weather forecasts that we then apply for transmission grids. And we are working in, hope to soon. I was hoping they will be signed by the time of today. We're still waiting for the signature, but I'll take the liberty and talk about it in the hope that it's going to be confirmed this week. It's in the chairman's signature. It's in Mozambique. It's a country that's developing rapidly from a quite a difficult position as well. And the way that the challenge there, the immediate challenge with the transmission grid, is to power the oil and gas operations in the north. And so with more capacity in the grid, it's possible to develop oil and gas fields faster and quicker. And I would like to, at this point, also take a step back, because if at any point this panel also has a name green in its title, and I want to address this because, in my opinion, there's no conflict with that at all, and I want to explain that for a bit. The whole purpose, in my view, of why we are talking about the green transition in Europe and the rest of the world is that we care about people's livelihoods, our own and also globally. The whole purpose of the green transition is, in my view, to make people's lives as best, as fast, as quickly, as good as possible. And developing oil and gas fields in Mozambique is a quick way to do this, as long as it can somehow also be done equitably, and the results of those. So the transmission grid is the most critical part for developing industry anywhere in the world. The big picture is that 10, 20 years from now, we need a transmission grid to power industry that needs power all the time, and then we can power remote places with solar and storage, basically. So what Gridraven helps to do is boost transmission grids. And as I said, all of the grid everywhere in the world has the same problems. And the weather forecast works globally. And looking forward to projects across the continent.
So besides the energy sector, what is very important also to our existence is the food and is the water. So especially if I could approach you first, Phyian, so how are data-driven platforms like your company's solution transforming food systems in Africa? And maybe you can again give very concrete examples or kind of walk us through how a farmer's daily decisions have changed when they have access to your tools.
Yeah. So one of the biggest challenges we're seeing with Africa's food system is that we don't see enough. So we don't know what's planted, what's harvested, we don't see anything. It's all fragmented and very inefficient. So our platform, Agribora, that's our main mission, to create visibility around that so that we can ensure that those doing the very, very difficult work, the very good work of feeding the continent are actually seen and supported. And just to your second question, for a farmer, unlike us, every decision is a gamble. So if they plant too late or if they plant too early, it can cost them their livelihood. So it is why it's very important that we get this data that informs them when to plant, when to harvest, so that we can actually protect their livelihood. So just for a practical example, it does cost their entire livelihood. A simple message that you should plant this day. Yeah.
If we could add also, what do you think? What role do partnerships, either it's local or international, really play in scaling your impact? Have you, or can you maybe bring it out a couple of examples about your partnerships, either with a local government or also international organizations that really have kind of enlarged the entire impact of the solution itself as well, and why this is important? Because in the next panel discussion later on, we will talk about especially different NGOs and organizations that provide support, and maybe you can bring it out any of your examples if there is any.
Yeah. So local partnerships have proven very valuable because they have a shared understanding of the realities on the ground. So it's very collaborative building. So we've partnered with banks, local banks. They support us in lending to farmers. And we can see that co-creation. For international organizations, we have a partnership with the European Space Agency. So they've come in handy with a lot of support financially and also just helping us develop our infrastructure behind our technologies. So we can see each partner playing a very important role in helping us scale our solutions.
That's incredible. So going back to the water industry side, Mika, also when it comes to how clean the water is or also the pollution, I think these are the major risks all across the continent, obviously. So what are some of the most kind of promising, when I would say, digital or also database innovations being currently deployed in Sub-Saharan Africa for very much more sustainable water use? That you have some examples?
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Sustainable water use is the key word. And how we work, first of all, we have 3 principles. First one is client first. Second one is challenge-based. And third one is boots on the ground. Okay. So we have succeeded to ramp up some major projects in Southern Africa, just starting 25 million project with the Kingdom of Lesotho, because we know we have the expertise to do the transformation. We know we have the technology, but if we don't understand our clients properly and their needs, we won't succeed. In case of Kingdom of Lesotho, 50% of the population does not have access to clean water. That's a starting point.
It's a massive number, yeah.
That's a starting point. And now we are talking about those who know Southern African environment knows that Lesotho actually is the water tower of Africa. All the water for example, in Gauteng province, the main economical hub in South Africa comes from Lesotho. Still, Lesotho only has 50% access to water, people of Lesotho. And how we are addressing this challenge is actually bringing in digital solutions, smart water management solutions, who will explain through data where the water is, where it should be distributed, and in this case, what's the value of water. So we have understanding about the client, we have understanding about the challenges. Biggest challenge, and this I'd say to all companies coming from Scandinavia or from Baltic states, is implementation. This is lacking, and we have approached this implementation with the principle that let's go to market as soon as possible. Let's put the boots on the ground. Let's capacitate the industries. For example, in Lesotho's case, we start from education. Education is number one. Digital is the cross-cutting theme through all these sectors, because through digitalization you are able to create data, you are able to bring in more smartness and intelligence to the systems, and from there you are able to start showing impact. I hope I answered the question.
Totally. So I would once again give a chance for the audience. Anybody already have any questions? Like I said, I mean, if I'm going to start asking questions from the very end, then you're going to run out of time. Any questions so far? No? Okay, then you can take your time. So I will actually come back with a question also, Morwesi, to you. So if you could just kind of talk about like how are African countries especially approaching energy transition planning, especially the planning part, especially where access is still very much limited, but renewable sources are, I would say, abundant.
Well, I guess the simple solution to that is renewables. And if you look at obviously the irradiation levels in Africa, solar makes pretty much the most sense. There's obviously, in the coastal regions, and I'm speaking mostly from a South African perspective, in the coastal regions, of course, wind as well. So certainly access to energy, I think, remains a priority, remains a real issue and a dire need. But with the fact that we've got this natural resources, we certainly should be able to do that. But I'll speak also more specifically about a unique scenario in South Africa. South Africa has quite a higher penetration, I'll be honest, around access to energy compared to some of the other countries, especially in the Southern African part. But it doesn't mean that there are people that are not without electricity or access to energy. So it's a shared problem. And also that also obviously talks to the fact that we can't now increase our productivity, because energy for productive use is also another area that needs a lot of attention. But an interesting dynamic in Johannesburg, for example, in South Africa, in the cities, is that because of our energy insecurity, a lot of solar energy and rooftop, whether it's commercial or industrial buildings or residential buildings, people have adopted solar energy, for example. And this is for their own self-consumption and to protect themselves and make sure that they are able to have energy. However, we all know how solar energy works. For example, it's productive at particular times of the day and less productive, generating less during other times of the day. But all that energy pretty much goes to waste, because we don't always have an ability to feed excess energy into the grid. And this, I think, is the opportunity to then start really harnessing as much energy that is generated and use it elsewhere. We should be able to trade with each other. We should be able to export it, to share it with a school that's in the neighborhood, or share it with a community that doesn't have. And this is precisely where businesses like ours is participating. We're creating what you call a virtual power plant, and really it's to pool, aggregate all these energy resources, distributed energy resources, and be able to supply it back into the grid, and it can be used then elsewhere. So yeah, it's really that challenge of energy insecurity. But then we also have this incredible excess. So it's access and excess, and there's no intermediary. And I think that's where these digital solutions come into play and can solve that problem and bridge the gap.
Awesome. One of the questions that I kind of have also a joint question, like I like to ask Georg and Mika. Besides Estonia and Finland being, neighborhood countries, as we talked about, frankly, we are also having a very similar approach to agile digital ecosystems. So if you could bring it out, what kind of partnerships, again, we talked about the public-private partnerships, are the most effective for transferring these solutions to the African markets that you would like to protect?
I can start with a personal story.
We love personal stories. So good.
With a friendly neighboring country. So 10 years ago, I started another company that did a pilot in Estonia, then first go-to-market in Finland with a Finnish transmission system. And now the same story, so it repeats. So I think one of the things being next to Hello?
I think we lost George and myself.
Am I back? I'm back.
Yeah.
One of the things certainly is that it's great in Europe to have small countries where you can scale things up, and because it only makes sense to come to Africa when you are already you already know that it works what you're doing. It doesn't make sense to go and try things out. It makes sense to come and say that here's what has worked in Europe, and this is why we think it's also working here, but let's try. The way to do that in our case was to find a local partner who has great contacts at the CEO level with electricity companies in many countries in Africa. And then we test it, and then after that success, then we are rolling it out. So it's I think the pathways that Europe is a good testing ground for making global solutions.
Mika, anything to add from, and especially because you mentioned before, like kind of accessing the African market or like exporting your solution, that it's very different, and maybe you can answer this also in a way that what do you need to know what do you need to know before if you go? Because we have a lot of entrepreneurs here that are interested in the African market. So maybe some of the kind of suggestions from your experience as being in Africa already for the past 15 years. So maybe you can kind of add this angle to the answer.
Okay, very good. I'm happy about this question. I'm happy that this event takes place in Estonia, first of all.
Why is that?
Addressing African countries and African societies, because those who know that Estonia last 30 years is one of the greatest example globally how you do transformation and how you economically, societal level create something this beautiful as this country has become. Yes, this is a small country, homogeneous country, unity, but I think this is in many ways, to my mind, inspirational example for African countries, how you do the transformation. And this is the country that does not have that much resources, natural resources. Their answer has actually been exactly the same what Finland did maybe 100 years ago. Put education in place, put innovation in place, and after that you can do whatever. And Finns, as our Estonian friends know, have been collaborating with Estonia a lot, and many of e-government technologies, let's look at X-roads, for example, are co-innovated, co-created jointly. And my advice to European businesses, Estonian businesses, is that go with this kind of a co-innovation mentality with a very humble attitude. Understand that ecosystems are different in African countries. These countries are, for those who don't know, are very inclusive by nature. I could pick up a phone and call a president and there could be a possibility that he picks up the phone. This is not the case in Africa. Okay. African business cultures are very exclusive because of this tribe culture background, partly. And this is something that needs to take into account. Trust needs to be earned. In our part of the world, trust is there until you lose it. And this takes time. And don't go alone. Go together with ecosystems. I'm working closely with 3 different ecosystems. Finnish Water Forum is one of them. I work with Smart City Innovation Cluster, but I also work with educational initiatives. Some of them funded by Finnish government, some of them private initiatives. But don't go alone. Set up ecosystems. Start working with local ecosystems in a co-innovation and then with the co-creation way, and try to get to the market as soon as possible. Boots on the ground.
Yeah, Morwesi, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I think I'm off.
Yeah. Can we check her microphone, please? Okay, you can talk.
Hello?
Should be fine now.
I'm on. Okay, thanks. No, I just wanted to chip in on that, and I cannot stress enough what you're saying, and even yourself, or about creating this ecosystem. You have to go in with a partnership approach, but also a lot of these innovations need to be tested, and testing it costs money. So at times you are not in a position to make your money first, immediately as a business. So I'll give you an example. I'm piloting something at the moment. I know you're piloting something at the moment. I'm actually potentially working, I'm also speaking prematurely, but I might potentially work with an Estonian business in this particular case. But, we sometimes constrain ourselves with these financial and commercial discussions too early, because now I'm expected to make an investment, or they're expected to make an investment, but it's too early. We're in the testing phase. I think we need to create an environment that's going to allow for entrepreneurs and innovators to get into the space, be able to access some resourcing and funding, but perhaps government-to-government type of support is also necessary, those relationships between the 2 governments, to allow that entrepreneurs really get into accessing those infrastructure aspects and test their concepts and ideas without needing to overinvest so early in the phase. And then over time, some of these industries don't even have the regulations ready, or the environment is not mature yet. And it does perhaps require a little bit of a collaborative partnership type of setup, and then you figure things out, and then you get to that commercial phase. So there is a gap, I think, in the market that requires a lot of support, financial and non-financial, on both ends. It's as dangerous even for an Estonian business to come into an African context, invest a lot, and then test and only find out that it's actually not going to work. So I think we just need a little bit of support and scaffolding and an environment that allows for innovators to freely test and not be left bankrupt and discouraged.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I think there's always a massive risk in entering a new market, and especially that's why I addressed that question, that what do you need to know before to kind of really prepare for this risk not to actually appear. Anything?
Just a quick chip in terms of African culture. I'm expert already, right? Africa is all about people. It's all about relationships. Europe is more of institutions. Europe is like a museum. You go to see some fancy buildings. Africa is about the people. You need to show your face. You need to spend time. There's a beautiful South African saying, "Fly by the night," describing entrepreneurs who just come and go, and then try to do business from home office. You need to be present. In Africa, you need to be present. If you are not ready to that, don't go there. That's my advice.
I fully agree, and even not just Africa, but in many other countries as well. And then knowing the kind of the business culture. So myself, I'm working for one of the global cybersecurity company that has offices in 10 different countries and 10 very different kind of business environments. And I see this every day in terms of like not the conflicts, but very much a challenge in terms of like how do you work together. In some of the cultures, like you can't even discuss business over over a dinner or something, and then there is another country that by the end of the dinner you need to have all the deals made. So I think it's very, very, very important that you mentioned again that you need to make friendships, you need to earn the trust, and you need to know the local people there to really succeed in the market as well. Once again, yes, we do have one hand up there. Could we? Okay. Now we have a lot of questions. So we have the mic over here. Once there is one girl from the back there, and then also one here.
Thank you so much. My name is Professor Mohammed from Kenya School of Government, Kenya. My question is, how sustainable are some of these innovations in the sense of where the government is not interested or is not participating? Because the moment we start small-scale kind of innovation, which has no sense of coordination from government, then how sustainable are these innovations? Because the moment government is not participating or not coordinating, then my thinking is that it might not be sustained, because there'll be some of it is youth-driven, as I think said by one of our colleagues. The moment it's youth-driven, one, it is small-scale. Two, the whole issue of copywriting patent is also an issue where the government must take interest for it then to be patented or copyrighted, for the youth to be protected, to sustain the innovation. So how sustainable are some of this, unless and until the government is, contributing to the realization of a bigger?
Yeah, we're going to take one more, I think, and then I will... Two more, all right.
Hello. Hi, my name is Anu. I'm a marketing professional. I have a question which actually can be addressed by anyone. What is the awareness level of Estonia as a clean tech capital or destination in the African market? I know the market is huge, but what is the perception? Do they even know us as green and tech?
We will take one more, and then we can do a bit of a round here that you can answer the questions. There was one hand. Yep, thank you.
Hi, thank you. My name is Christy Okba. I'd like to ask what your opinion is on nuclear energy, in the use of nuclear energy in Africa. I mean, at this point, you only have it in South Africa, and as it seems there is this energy grid kind of deficiency, then is that something that is considered by African nations, and is it something that maybe we would even recommend?
Morwesi, could we start from your side, and maybe now taking the last questions in terms of nuclear energy?
Sure. So as the questions clarifies, South Africa definitely has already nuclear in its energy mix. I think the debate right now is whether to increase it or not, and it's definitely a raging debate. I think and this is a personal opinion. I think there's a place for all, and of course with nuclear, some concerns are really about sort of end of life type things and safety and otherwise, and other concerns, and also just the capital cost, the heavy capital cost of it, particularly in a developing country context. I think that's one of the other big concerns. However, from our end, I think it's definitely part of the mix. It's something that's been pioneered many years ago already from the South African context, and it's likely to stay. It's about how much, which I cannot say at this point. Maybe the other question that was asked was awareness level of Estonia. I think it's growing. I think South Africa definitely, it's a growing interest there. I happen to know one Estonian who lives in South Africa, but I think it's a growing population, and I think the ambassador is doing incredible work to a lot of awareness creation there, but very exciting nonetheless. And the first question was about how sustainable are some of these innovations. I think they can be sustainable, and it obviously is context specific. In our case, for example, we actually want to lead that adoption by governments. Sometimes that's what it takes. The market leads and can actually influence the regulation in how it's supposed to be. But I must say, maybe we are making that calculated sort of effort and risk because the signals of a energy market that's going to be open and where there's going to be participation by a private sector, the signals are already there. So there's enough understanding to actually give us confidence to actually pursue these innovations despite the regulation not already being firmed up. So I think it's a balance. Thanks.
Georg, maybe you can answer as a first thing. Are we well known as a green country in Africa? Like if you are doing your partnerships, do you have to introduce yourself saying that you're from Estonia? Do people know which country it is today?
We do have to say where we are, but people have heard about at least the digital success story of the e-government.
And anything related to green?
Nothing related to green. It's more about the digital aspect that has gone globally known. The questions are each of them, I suppose we could do a whole debate on, but address the government involvement and sustainability question that at least in the electrical grids, everywhere in the world, including in all countries, I believe, in Africa, where the transmission grids originally have been government owned, or at least government mandated and now maybe sold to private enterprises, but the link is there with government. Typically, ministers are in the management or boards of those companies. So it's very much and the cost of electricity, cost of energy is a key priority for all governments in the world. So very much requires cooperation, but at least from a solution provider point of view, I don't thankfully need to worry too much about it because we are doing a technical solution. The contribution is a relatively minor part in the whole machine that needs to be done, and I need to be mindful of who they are and what their interests are, and to point out that it helps lower the cost of electricity and to grow the economy faster. In that way, I can benefit from the government interest and involvement, and I believe that is a sustainable approach. That it's a required solution for most countries. In terms of nuclear, I've somehow happened to be the nuclear voice in Estonia. I've been on primetime TV debating about nuclear. My background in my master's degree was in nuclear. I'll only point out one thing, which is that it's very difficult to estimate how much a nuclear plant will cost and when it will be finished. There's a really good book by a Danish author called How Big Things Get Done. Bent Flyvberg, and he collected a database of 16,000 large projects around the world. And he looked at the estimated time to completion and the cost, and the worst performing types of projects are nuclear waste management. Those have all been at least 3 or 4 times over cost. Olympic Games, because Olympic Games are always organized by naive cities who always start from scratch. They always underestimate the cost by about 3 times. And number 3 is nuclear power plants. So it's really difficult to build them. They are massive centralized organizations to build them. In Europe and US, we have not been able to build them. Finnish colleagues can talk about the Olkiluoto 3, which is meant to be ready in 2005 or 9. And now I think it has just connected last year, massively over budget. And the only countries in the world that are able to build nuclear are China and Russia. Now, many countries in Africa have really good relations with China and Russia, but you do need to import and depend in your critical infrastructure on countries that are far away if you're going with nuclear. And the same is true in Europe. We would need to depend on American technology, and it's not, we don't know how to build them anymore. I did my master's in London, in probably one of the world's best nuclear engineering departments, and the population pyramid was like this. I was basically the only student, and I still feel bad for my professor that I did not go into nuclear. There's a really, everybody's retired who knows anything about nuclear in Western countries. In China and Russia, that's not the case, but it's a political and strategic decision. You can't compare nuclear and solar because the best performing you can to within 1% say how much solar is going to cost and when it will be built, and batteries as well, because you're doing the same thing multiple millions of times. Small is beautiful.
Again, to you.
Yeah, I think I'll take on his
sustainability.
Yeah. Like Morwesi said, rightfully so, it's very context specific. And if I talk about it from agriculture, it is not sustainable. To build a solution in isolation in our ecosystem, it's not sustainable at all. So we take a strong ecosystem approach, banks, governments. And so that's why we're here, all of us together, so that we can ensure that we're working together on these solutions.
Anything, Mika? Everybody answered already, I think, very, very briefly. It's just maybe you have
Okay, I'll start from sustainability. First of all, it needs to be a starting point, and it actually is a starting point. Environmental, social, governance, racial, gender equality, all need to be in the mix. And reason is very simple. You don't do it just for that sake. You do it for investments. Many African governments right now are in a position that they need to open up and find new markets. Some superpowers are withdrawing from African continent, and what I hear from governments in Southern Africa at least is that we need to approach EU and create a stronger relationship with EU. Trade tariffs, all that. And these markets require sustainability, and governments in Africa needs to look for that. When it comes to nuclear energy, I always ask in African context that why not other renewable energy sources? Hydro, solar, because that continent is rich in renewable energy. And as my colleague rightly pointed, even Finnish engineers that are considered top in the world were not able to finalize the nuclear power station in time. It took 15 years. Requires a lot of capacity. Then about clean tech. I would say in terms of clean tech, Estonians in Africa are not known. But one thing Estonia is famous of is digital capabilities. Estonia has a very, very strong ICT sector. I just had a Teams last evening with my South African colleagues, some of them IT people, and they right away picked up Estonia as one of the role models. I'm not an advisor to Estonian government at all, but I would say put all in digital, and remember that in these areas like clean tech, digital is the cross-cutting theme. And from there you are able to create a brand of your own, also in clean tech.
I couldn't agree more. I usually like to end the panel in a similar way as the previous one as well. So I will give everybody, very shortly, just 45 seconds. So just in one sentence, or like use your 45 seconds, maybe a bit more. If you could scale one green innovation across the continent today, what would it be and why? And I know some people might be a bit biased here, but maybe you can start Morwesi all the way here. One green innovation across the continent. Why?
I think solar PV, absolutely, and not just in generation of more solar powered energy. But we need to get to the next step of being able to trade energy, export energy, and use it more smartly, and be able to support grids, and also be able to make additional revenue for those who have invested in their solar plants. So it shouldn't be only for utility scale type of projects, but even your residents, your commercial, your factory should be able to make use of that excess or even the solar energy investment for one, productivity, but also for profit.
All right, thanks, Georg.
If I had a magic wand, I would connect everybody in Africa to that transmission distribution grid. But that was the question, if I had a magic wand. We don't, and I don't think that's the right answer for most parts of Africa. It's also, many Estonians know that if you want to connect your country house to the grid, you have to pay like 50,000 euros for the last kilometer of distribution. It doesn't make sense, so I agree with your answer. Solar PV is the real answer, but with the magic wand, the grid.
Awesome. Any magic hands from your side?
I think I would, given my sector, I would scale all innovations that give access to financing for farmers. Yeah. We have 90% who can't access financing. So that's what I would scale.
Mika.
Okay, after providing clean water for everyone, which is actually a basic human rights to be. Water is upstream businesses, and downstream businesses are agriculture and all the other. After that, my pick would be integrated waste management facilities that provide energy, renewable energy. And I would do it this way, that I would set up a consortium of best companies from Scandinavia and Baltic states, create an ecosystem and start communicating, going into dialogue with ecosystems in selected African countries. That will be extremely big business opportunity for this part of the world, which has the world-class waste management facilities. So that's my take.
So kind of in a wrap up, in order to live longer, happier, healthier, we need to start thinking about how to invest and allocate more money into, more green, more sustainable solutions, and especially finding partners, both in the private sector, but also large international organizations that are providing financial support. And this is why, again, we have this event today here to really make these connections and then make sure that we will have these partnerships. So once again, now I would ask you to do a massive round of applause to our panelists here.